that you can be here. So thank you, and thank you as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Me too.
Bob, we see your whole screen. Are you going to change that so that it's, there we go.
Yeah, it was, I had to figure out how to do the recording. So
I get it. Okay, I'm muting.
okay, I think we're going to get underway here. Welcome to the Florida Civic Advance webinar series, where we showcase examples of civic excellence and civic health around Florida and elsewhere. I'm Bob Jones. I'm a board member of the Florida Civic Advance. We're a 501c3 membership nonprofit network that is committed to working across sectors and divides to advance civic health in Florida communities. Today's program features our second webinar in 2 months on engaging youth in civic health. Last month, we featured a program at the University of Florida and 4-H, Florida 4-H clubs, that was looking at how students got engaged in activities, community activities, and civic life. Today's program is featuring the same general topic, but with a focus on the USF St. Pete, Petersburg, and Florida State Alliance of YMCAs Civic Fellows program. And I'm going to kind of give you a couple of quick background slides just to kind of orient you towards kind of how the Florida Civic Advance is thinking about civic health. What we see and what this is defined using a national conference on citizenship definition is that it really relates to overall well-being of residents, neighbors, and communities in order to use their voices, find solutions together to improve the community. So it's a really basic notion of engaging the whole community and focusing on the well-being of both individuals and neighborhoods and broader communities. What the research shows is that communities with strong indicators of civic health, and these are principally taken from public health data around the country, higher employment rates, stronger schools, better individual physical health. In fact, communities that have strong civic health indicators live 10 years longer than people who live in communities with poor civic health indicators. Accessible civic gathering places and libraries and parks, more responsive local governments, and their residents, as I mentioned, live longer and healthier lives. So it's an important concept, and it has evolved in both the area of the Civic Health Index, which is a national index. It's been utilized in different states and cities, but also in public health contexts and how they are starting to understand the connection between civic health and public health. These are a couple of statistics that they're somewhat dated, like in the middle of the last decade, but we are on the wrong end of the scale in most of these rankings for volunteering, belonging to civic organizations, donating to charities, neighbors fixing community problems, and attending public meetings. And we want to change that. And we think that the civic health is a critical part of this. And these factors that are part of that Civic Health Index really speak to what it is like in a community that is not civically healthy and what it's like in a community that is civically healthy. So I'm putting this up. It's going to be a blur for now, but this is on our website. This is basically an infographic showing how we frame our mission as well as our strategic priorities. In particular, we're focusing in the next couple of years on supporting civic health measurement. We're also showcasing and deepening engagement with our members and the like. So this is just for that, but I want to then go to the to present actually to introduce the presenters. So let me start with Dr. Judith McLaughlin. So she is the Frank E. Duckwall Professor of Florida Studies and also the founding director of the Center for Civic Engagement at USF St. Petersburg. She serves as Associate Professor of Political Science. She's received numerous awards for excellence in teaching, both national and in the state, including the Campus Compact Graham Fry Civic Educator Award. And she has published a book on congressional participation as amicus curiae before the Supreme Court. She also worked with the Supreme Court in terms of working on history. She is she's got a very interesting background, a lot of work in politics and government, as well as internationally. She's a Fulbright scholar, and you can see the Fulbright Association logo in the back there. And in Moldova, and Macedonia, I believe in Kosovo, but I think you're going to Moldova again in this year. So congratulations on that. So she also was a candidate for Florida Senate in 2014. So she brings a broad perspective and has been very active as a civic agent in the context of her research and her practice. So Chelsea Combs is the State Director of Civic Engagement and Teen Initiatives for the Florida State Alliance of YMCAs. She also worked in the Peace Corps in the past in Kosovo, and studied and attended the Antioch University in New England. So welcome her. And Chelsea, I'm going to ask you to introduce Emily and Chloe just briefly here, and then they'll have an opportunity to reflect and talk about their experiences.
Thank you so much. So I just want to do a quick brief introduction on Emily Vigil. So she is a senior. She's also dual enrolling. And Chloe Miget, she's from Nocatee. So we have a student from Nocatee all the way up in the north area of Florida. And then Emily is joining us from Southwest Florida. So our program does work with students from across the state, which is really exciting. It gives these students an opportunity to be civically engaged both in their local communities as well as statewide and nationally. Emily is also one of our elected presiding officers, and we'll get a little bit more into what that really means in terms of being a youth-led and youth-ran organization. And Chloe is doing really phenomenal in youth and government. She single-handedly started her chapter at her local YMCA and is working really, really hard in their media program as well to really boost that. I've seen all of your social media posts and they are phenomenal. So one day you'll have to just teach me how to do that. But again, like Bob mentioned, you'll hear more from them and what their experience was like going through the Civic Institute. So more to come from them.
Okay. In the registration process, we have asked a question, what do you want to learn? And so I'm sharing this slide just to give some of the comments that were made. I think they're really interested in the model that the Civic Institute has adopted, and you're going to hear a lot about both that model for youth engagement and kind of best practices and lessons learned going forward. I think one person really was interested in how to encourage intergenerational leadership, and then also youth engagement strategies in general, and sort of what metrics. I think we're going to receive some metrics in this presentation regarding the program that have been conducted, and then one respondent wanted to think about opportunities for the business community to get involved with youth civic engagement. So these were provided to us on the registration, and we've shared these with the presenters so they're aware of these. I'll just let you know if you have questions as we go through. Please use the chat to kind of put questions up. We'll try and keep track of those, and then at the other end of the presentations, we'll open it up for Q&A more generally. Also, if you're worried about a lot of information being provided in the slides, we're going to put the slides up on the site. We're also going to put the recording up on the site for the program. So with that, I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to invite Chelsea to share her slides.
Thank you so much. All right, so let's get into it. Why are we here, right? So let me just tell you a little bit about the Youth in Government program. So the Florida Youth in Government program is a program that's underneath the Florida State Alliance of YMCAs. The Florida State Alliance of YMCAs supports all of our 16 associations across the state of Florida, with over 450 branches of the YMCA. So we work connectively with their teens as well as their programmers to support different events. It was actually founded in 1957. Youth in Government is part of a national movement of civic education. So Youth in Government exists in most of the states around the US. It's a youth-ran and a youth-led program, so we focus on developing leadership skills as well as active civic engagement and community service. All of the hours that our students spend in Youth in Government are Bright Futures eligible. That's a really great opportunity for them to earn hours towards scholarships for college. It also teaches students to debate ideas and not people. We're really focused on students understanding the skills that they need to be civically engaged and to understand and open their mind to other folks. It also builds confidence in public speaking, creates a safe place for understanding. And again, we are part of a national movement as well as international. So we do have global and international opportunities for Gen Z and students. And I'll talk a little bit more about what Changemakers looks like. Changemakers. So it's part of the State Alliance. It's a teen summit that offers Gen Z leaders from all of our different programming across the state, whether they're a teen lifeguard, part of Leaders Club, Achievers, and of course, Youth in Government. They attend different workshops on leadership styles, character development, and civic engagement. We're also incorporating a lot of different guest speakers, which is a great opportunity for business opportunities to get involved. So I know that that was one thing that folks wanted to learn about. Reach out, let us know if there's a specific workshop that you would like to run. We're definitely open to seeing what you can provide our teens. We also have a state assembly conference. So part of the Youth in Government program, it is a year-long program. It typically takes place in after-school clubs or in a classroom setting, as teachers are our main volunteers in this area. Students can participate in different aspects of that program, and then they will attend a state assembly conference, and it's always located in Tallahassee, and it's in the springtime. So depending on where the legislature sits, right now we're going to be offering the state assembly conference in April this year. But it is a simulation process, which is a proven effect of how to learn, especially in civics. So each year's high school participants will have an immersive state government simulation that's hosted in the Capitol. Last year, we did have 186 high school students from across the state of Florida attend. And we had about 38 middle school students also in attendance. We typically separate these conferences where middle school will be in March and high school will be in April. However, just due to the low fact our COVID numbers, it just made more sense last year and the year before to bring those students together at the Capitol. So we have a high school and a middle school youth and government program. So I just wanted to make that's available for both of our middle school and high school students. We are a model legislator, so students in the legislative program will arrive at State Assembly with a bill that they have researched and written throughout that program year. They will debate that on the floor. These are our presiding officers who are over the legislative session or the legislative program in our area. Again, we're really youth-led and youth-ran. So we have, a Williams Senate President, Williams House Speaker, Sullivan Senate President, and Sullivan House Speaker. So those are divided into our different committees. Those students also train supporting officers, is what we call them, from across the state of Florida, who are their peers and work to chair those committees as well. We also have an executive officers, which is what our guest speaker, Emily Vigil, sits on the board of. We model the state legislators. So of course we have the governor, lieutenant governor, chief of staff, commissioner of agriculture, and chief financial officer. Those students are particularly part of an elected group. So they are actually elected at state assembly. They do a campaign process throughout the year. And they work with their also, again, supporting officers in their department heads to research both policy and also help to ask questions about those bill authors to make sure that they really understand the Florida process and what their bill is representing. Lastly, we have our judicial program. So our judicial program is ran by a chief justice and a senior justice. Our attorney general sits on the executive board, however, assists in the judicial program as well to look over those cases. They go and they actually work in the Supreme Court during their assembly. So they will help find issues with cases. They'll argue for a petitioner or respondent. Our chief justice and our senior justice actually research and create a case for those students to argue both sides of. And they have to understand what legal precedences and principles are. So again, youth-led and youth-ran, but more on the judicial side. Those are our different aspects of youth and government. So I'm just going to pause here really quickly, and I'm going to let Judith Ann kind of come in to talk a little bit about what our partnership between the University of South Florida, St. Petersburg, as well as the Youth and Government GIG program, and how that came about and what that looks like evolved in our Civic Institute program.
Thank you so much. Should I share my screen now? Maybe that's easier. Let me see.
I got it up for you. If you just.
Excellent. And this is the latest version?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Chelsea. So in line with some of the rather shocking / disappointing figures that Bob had shared earlier about the state of Florida's civic health that came from data that was collected from the last census. There were a number of changes in Florida civics education that were encouraging, starting with the Sandra Day O'Connor Civics Education Act, mandating civics curriculum K-12, including a middle school course that students would need to demonstrate competency. Back in those early days, I was actually a fellow with the Florida Joint Center for Citizenship and assisted them with the teacher trainings for all the new civics teachers around the state. More recently, the legislature extended that civic literacy requirement to all students in Florida state universities and colleges. Now that includes every student who's coming or graduating from a state college or university needs to take a course so that they can learn about civics. Our program we started developing it in the fall of 2016. Our first program year was the 2018-2019 academic year. Next slide, please. So I would say and next slide again. Our program sort of came about during this interest in improving Florida's civic health and helping students understand good citizenship skills. And I think the exciting thing about the YMCA Youth and Government program and this program is that it does focus on Florida government, because those other required courses are American national government. And so this really gives students the opportunity to learn about state government. And then we overlay also local government programming when the students are on campus for the Civics Institute. Okay, so what is the USF St. Petersburg YMCA Civic Fellows program? Well, it's a partnership between USF St. Petersburg and the YMCA, the state alliance of the YMCA, and we work with these amazing high school students who are part of the Youth and Government program. And then we have had sort of an overlay of a college level civics curriculum that the students participate in addition to all of the aspects and components of the Youth and Government program that you just learned about. And for their participation and successful completion of all the course requirements, students in the Civic Fellows program earn 6 college credits. So that's 2 college courses. One is Florida Politics and Government, and the other is a community leadership practicum. So as a part of this, it's basically a 10-month program. And students participate in everything that Chelsea just described, their chapter meetings, the Changemaker Summit, the State Assembly, which is incredible. So I'm always up there observing this Civic Fellows, but I get to see all the students. And they're, if anyone was depressed by seeing the statistics in the beginning of the slide, if you were in Tallahassee and observed these students in action, you would be filled with so much hope and faith in the future for these future civic leaders that you'll get to meet shortly. But in any case, so it's this 10-month program, and then it culminates in a week-long Civics Institute a residential institute at USF St. Petersburg. So this gives the opportunity for these students to have, as I said, college level curriculum, as well as an experience of what it's like to live on a college campus, and working with one of the questions that someone had asked was about how do we ensure diversity, but that's another great thing about partnering with the YMCA and the local YMCAs is that we're working with, in many cases, underserved youth and a diverse population to bring them this opportunity to have college credit before they graduate high school. Next slide, please. I think this might, I had some other slides. Maybe I could, let me see if I can share my
This
screen.
one was the one that you sent most recently.
I think it's not the one I sent to Bob. So let me just see. I'll share screen. Sorry. Okay. How's this? Okay. So as I said, it is it's the 2 3-credit courses. And so what we have done as we develop the curriculum is to make sure that students are going to meet all of the student learning outcomes in those 2 college level classes from what they're doing in the 10-month YMCA program. And then what we offer at the Civics Institute complements that so that together they've met all of these things. So what are we doing at the Civics Institute? It's the combination of seminars, lectures, workshops, field trips. We do a lot of hands-on experiential learning opportunities. So we take them to the Pinellas County Supervisor of Elections, for example, where they can learn about election administration, what's done to, encourage voter participation and ensure integrity of our elections. We take them to the Criminal Justice Center. We go to different city halls, the county commission, school board. We it's been different activities at different years. We've run it now for 5 years. We have a number of guest speakers, the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker of the House, many state representatives and senators, county commissioners, mayors, city council members, judges, attorneys, lobbyists, journalists. Actually, as it relates to lobbyists, one thing you heard Chelsea describe the legislature is as a model government. So it's a model government and not a mock government. And so a lot of what we do in our program is when they're on the college campus is also give them the opportunity to um, learn more about the realpolitik, shall we say. So they do meet with lobbyists and other legislators to kind of get like how a bill becomes a law, behind the scenes perspective of what's going on in Tallahassee as well, to complement their bill making knowledge from their simulation. We also incorporate a number of service learning opportunities. That's included beach cleanups, working with food pantries and other opportunities. And in addition to the service, meeting with those community partners and learning how to identify community needs and what those partners are doing, working with local governments and organizations to try to meet those community needs. And then we also try to expose them to all of the cultural, opportunities that there are in Tampa Bay as well. So we've taken them to the Dali Museum, James Museum, Rays games, the MFA, the Florida Holocaust Museum we visit every time, and the beautiful parks and recreation in Pinellas County as well. So as Bob mentioned, you're going to have access to these slides where you can look in detail what are the learning outcomes of the leadership course, what are we doing in the different workshops that we do, and all of the learning outcomes of the Florida Politics and Government course, and then how we have the lectures and seminars and activities at the Institute to make sure that by the end of the 10-month, the student has met all of these learning outcomes. And some pictures of the students in action on the field trips and the service opportunities and some of the cultural activities around Pinellas County. So the students do participate in assessments of the program, and Chelsea and I meet regularly throughout the year, and then we meet after the debriefing and then meeting to plan for the future year. And of course, student feedback that's a part of this we take into account as we're year to year working on our programming. And it is it makes us very happy to be able to report that when we ask questions like, has the Civics Institute inspired you to increase your civic engagement? Do you feel more knowledgeable about state and local government after you have participated in this institute? And would you recommend that students participate in the Civic Fellows program in the future? 100% of the students who have responded to those surveys have said yes. Well, 99.1 and the increase, although I will say the students in youth and government are already civically engaged, so it's hard to increase it, I guess. And so anyway, I'm not too sad with the 99.1% there. Now we are working with high school students, so they're not all able to register to vote, but many of them do register to vote or pre-register when they're at the supervisor of elections office field trip. So we do see a big bump in the post-institute registration. And again, after going through the Institute, students are very optimistic about the difference that they can make by being involved. And here's some figures of where you can see the increases in students saying that they want to be involved in state, local, and national office or student government, being engaged on their campuses. And this is really interesting. So we take those same Civic Health Index, indicators, and we do that for the pre and post surveys. But when you see this, have you ever contacted a state or federal legislator about an issue? 25% have. Attend a city council, 21%, school board, 22%, county commission, 4%. So those numbers are higher than a general Gen Z population and overall Florida population. So kudos to them. But on these metrics, after the Civics Institute, it's all 100% because we bring them to a city council meeting, school board meeting, county commission meeting. They talk to elected officials about events, issues that they care about. So we are able to take, and they volunteered for a community service organization. So we take what are good, impressive figures compared to the Florida statistics, but it's all 100% after the Institute. And we have the privilege of having two of our students one other thing I wanted to say about the assessments is all the students create a Civic Fellows portfolio. And here are a few links to some student portfolios, but it's amazing what the students do and how creative they are in capturing what it is that they're doing. Again, in all those aspects of the YMCA Youth and Government program, as well as all of the aspects of the Civic Fellows Institute. And it's a really great way for the students to tell their story. But even better than a portfolio is actually having Emily and Chloe here live with us, taking time out of their school schedule, even though they're both amazing students. So thank you to you and your teachers. So let me stop sharing my screen. And I don't know if Chelsea, you want to introduce Emily or Chloe, or who's going to go
what?
first?
Emily, I'm just going to throw your slides up and then let you go ahead and discuss.
Sounds great. So, hi, I am Emily Ann Vigil, and I actually serve as on the executive branch of the Florida Youth and Government Program as Chief Financial Officer. I will be presenting alongside with Chloe. Chloe, if you want to do your little introduction.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chloe Miggett. So I currently serve as the president of the Nocatee Youth and Government chapter. This was the very first year, this past program year was our very first year. And I just fell in love with the program immediately. And I've tried to shove my way into every single program we've got. So this is just, Civic Fellows was just another extension of my love for youth and government. And I'm really excited to be presenting alongside Emily because she is fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you. So this photo actually of me holding the gavel was taken at Mayor Ken Welch's office, the mayor of St. Petersburg. That was in the office of like the city council like meeting hub. And they gave us a firsthand tour of their facilities and how they affect the city of St. Petersburg. It's just like a very cool and very neat hands-on experience in local government. This program has allowed like me and other students like the large role and like the home rule of our local government as opposed to our state government. The Youth and Government program focuses more on Florida state government. So seeing the Civic Fellows program focusing on local was a very cool contrast because questions I thought I knew the answers to was like, oh wait, no, there's home rule involved. It's different because it's more local. Chelsea, if you want to go to the next slide. So meeting real government officials like Mayor Leslie Waters and the Chief of Police, Anthony Holloway, it was very cool because it allowed us to understand their job roles. Because when meeting these amazing government officials, we got to speak with them like one-on-one firsthand and ask them their daily struggles and rewards with serving their community. I remember asking the Chief of Police, Anthony Holloway, his take and thoughts on the safety of schools and how St. Pete takes care of school threats and such, because I know like school safety is a very like hot topic across the nation. So just seeing at a local perspective how the Chief of Police takes on that challenge of, securing our students. I remember he was like so amazed at how engaged we are as youth in our concerns, and he answered very beautifully. I know that Chloe, if you want to add on about the unique experiences and such.
Yes. So one thing that really stood out to me about the program, and especially the speakers and the people we talked to, were it was the way that we had such diverse speakers. So for example, this past summer, which is when I attended the Institute, one of our activities was a panel that was kind of like a recap of the last legislative session. And we had the privilege of having two representatives speak to us. We had Representative Bernie Jacques and Representative Lindsay Cross. And the reason that this panel stuck and resonated with me so much is because they were both from very opposite ends of the political spectrum. They both had very different ideas, but they came together to unite and came together to prove that working in government, working in politics, it's not just about what you're for, what you're against. It's about bettering your community. So things like touring the chief of police office and the supervisor of elections office, it just showed that the people that work in our government, the people from the mayors to the people who work in the printing rooms, every single person plays a vital role in our government administration. And I think that was something that I'll take with me for a very long time.
Yes, and to add on to about her, speaking about the panels, we had a panelist named Senator Jeff Brandes. He's no longer a Florida senator because he was termed out, but when we did meet him, he was senator. And it was really nice because he was a Republican senator. However, he always says, like, you know what, like, I am like more of a capitalized D with a little R. Like, he's very, I always thought, like, my closed-minded mindset was like, oh, if you're a Republican senator, you're a Republican. But then also with this program, I've allowed to like open my mindset of like, you know what, like a lot of these people, like they're more in the middle about things, just like I am. And it's very nice to see like how, even though they have like they're set as a Republican for senators, they also like serve the entire state. So it's very, it was very like opening minded to see like, wow, like you're not just like stereotypical. Like, I don't know. I thought it was very cool. Can you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, so how Chloe was saying, we went to the supervisor of elections. That's actually me and my best friend Lauren when we went. And she was actually pre-registering to vote because we were the age of 16. I was already pre-registered because I got mine when I did my license. But she was able to pre-register during this program, which I thought was really, really cool, getting to see like a bestie moment, you know? So it was definitely super exciting. I remember like being like so like engaged and like just learning everything because we got to walk through like a day in the life of how a vote goes through the election office. So like they were explaining how literally any citizen can go and like watch the votes be counted, which I had no idea that was like open to the public. And they were like, yeah, like during major elections, like if you want to go and like you can literally sit here at like 1 a.m. while we're counting the votes for like presidency or stuff like that. It was just really cool. And then we also got to have like our own mock like or model election process where like we each individually went to a voting booth and like it was like favorite color, favorite ice cream, like little silly things like that. But it was just really cool to see like how our votes really mattered. And it was like cool to like what won and like stuff like that. And it was like a real like little, I don't know, it was really cool. But as someone who turns 18 in March, my number one thing I'm super excited about is being a legal adult. It's like being able to vote and like use my voice to enact change. Because as a youth leader now, I know that I can use my voice to allow others to enact change. But as someone who can't vote, it's just more like on the advocacy ends. I know that this last year for November 6th, we had an election and I was like, Mom, you have to go vote because I can't. You have to do it for me. Like you have to. And so I made her go vote and that was really exciting. But Chloe, if you want to add on to that.
Sorry, I couldn't find the unmute button for a second. But basically, one thing I just wanted to talk about was the environment in the supervisor of elections office. So I had never, I'm gonna be honest, I grew up in a family that is very involved in government. I did not know supervisor of elections existed until I came to the Civic Fellows Institute. So it really shows you how much you think you know. But anyways, so one of the most like important things to me, like Emily, is voting. And so I'm a junior right now. I just started my junior year and I will turn 18 on October 23rd of 2025. Wait, no. 2024, excuse me. And pretend I didn't say that. But 2024, October 23rd, I will be turning 18. So I was like, am I going to be able to vote in the presidential election that year? Because there's I forget how many days it is, but there's a very close cutoff. And so they went out of their way, the employees at the supervisor of elections office, to go talk to a bunch of people in the office, figure out what the rules were. And they came back and they told me, yes, you will be allowed to vote in the presidential election. And the fact that they took the time and effort out of their workday to go figure out whether or not I could vote, I think that spoke volumes that they're here for the community. And it made me excited because, like Emily, I just can't wait to vote. And it makes me excited. Like Emily said, it's a really big deal to get to be involved in our community as teenagers. I think it sets the bar high for other teenagers, not to be not to be, you know, but I think it sets the bar high for others, saying you need to be involved in your community too, because the community that a lot of a lot of young adults think we don't have any association of politics, but that's not true, because the government and the political environment that is happening now is what we're going to inherit. So it's our duty to make sure that we are ready to intricate ourselves into that group. So just the idea of voting is so important, and I don't think enough people realize it. So it was really nice to go somewhere where all they're about is voting. So yeah, I'll hand it back to you, Emily.
Thank you. You can go to the next slide, Chelsea. So we learned about the importance of sustainability and how the government can have an effect on the health of the community. By doing so, we had like part of our service learning projects, we went to the St. Pete Free Clinic. And when we went there, we saw firsthand what it's like to be a volunteer in these environments and how the government thrives off of these civically minded volunteers. So we were able to go and we sorted the food. It was like cans go in one section, like dried rice, like juices, like stuff like that. Of course, like the non-perishable food items, that way that we can give back to the community and making sure that they are being fed. As one of our sustainable development goals is to ensure that there's no poverty and like no hunger. So if you notice, I have made a slide of like a mix of green and blue accents throughout this entire slide. And that was intentional to represent the education of the importance of sustainability. At the Civic Fellows program, we learned about how as citizens, we can work towards a sustainable future and environment, but also the roles that our local, state, and national governments have to be environmentally friendly and work towards the sustainability of our planet. We learned that sustainability isn't just towards like saving the turtles and like caring for the plastics in our oceans, but mainly like conserving and changing our ways as a present human species to ensure the safety and well-being for our future humans on this planet. So we learned how easy it is to change small things about our way of life to better the environment and planet for our future. So instead of throwing away that plastic water bottle that you had just finished in the trash, like take the extra 3 steps to your recycling bin. Things that aren't that hard, but are very mindful to our environment. We've learned how easy it is to make just small, at the USF campus itself, we actually saw firsthand their initiatives on working towards a sustainable environment, which I thought was super, super cool. Like they have the Student Green Energy Fund, the Clean Energy Resource Center, they have zero emission electric buses and LEED certified buildings. So USF like actively works towards the United Nations 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. So goals like decent work and economic growth, reduced inequalities, affordable and clean energy, responsible consumption and production. Like there's like a list of like 17 of them. It's amazing how USF is actually, I think, one of the top schools in the country like that are working towards these goals actively. Like clean water and sanitation, stuff like that. So the famous saying goes like a better and more sustainable future for all. I just think it's very interesting because it's not something that I would have thought about had not being like educated on this, because I always think of like sustainability as like, you know, like saving the turtles kind of thing, but it was just very cool about how they really opened my mind as to like, no, it can be as far as like your food waste, or as far as like how the local government does their trash and stuff like that. Like, does your city have an ordinance about you have to recycle? I know I live in a city that makes sure that you have to recycle. Everyone has a recycling bin, but I've also lived in a different city when I was younger that we didn't even have a recycling bin in our neighborhood. So and then you had, as a citizen, you had to go the extra mile to go to a recycling center. So it was very nice to see like how different cities, local and state, like can really encourage change as far as sustainability goes. If you want to add on, Chloe.
Yeah, really quickly. So we also did the beach cleanup similar to what you can see in Emily's slide. That was incredible. We had a competition to see who could fill up the most trash bags. Obviously, my team won, but that's beside the point. But we got to see all the different kinds of trash. You know, when you think of beach trash, you're thinking like those like soda plastic ring things. You're thinking of empty bags. But we found the most peculiar things. We found beach floats that like had been like blown up. We found like business cards. We found things that it was like, these cannot go into our environment, and they were going to go into the environment. They were already in the environment. So I think that showed us a lot. But also for our volunteer project, we did some service work at the Ronald McDonald House. So excuse me, my group we went out to their like subset house and we painted their fence for them. And they told us all about what they do at the Ronald McDonald House. And I truly did not know what the Ronald McDonald House was. I thought you just got a burger and fries there. Like I didn't know. But no, they offer free places to stay, meals to eat, things to do for families of children who are receiving critical care in hospitals nearby. So it was really humbling to see people. This is a place, we're helping a place that helps families get their groove back, get back in the swing of things when they go through such tragic, unexpected things like their children going through awful conditions in the hospital. So it was really a blessing to get to help a organization that also helps our community. So yeah. Back to you, Emily.
Thank you. And that is all for as far as like our things. If you guys want to have any questions, you guys can put them in the chat and me and Chloe will be like, we'll welcome to like reply and answer any questions that you guys have for us. But I guess back to you, Chelsea.
Thank you. And I'm blessed that I get to work alongside these amazing leaders throughout the state. This is just a little taste of what youth in government can really do. But I learn every single day from these leaders. So I just want to thank you again for being here and using your voice to really, really make effective change, not only locally, not only statewide, but nationally and internationally as well. So thank you guys.
So we have time for some questions. I think Ingrid had a question. I don't know if Ingrid, do you want to come on and ask the question regarding student government involvement? Ingrid.
Well, I asked it and it was answered in the chat, which is great. And I really appreciate that. I just want to give feedback to the presenters that it's just very exciting to hear your enthusiasm and your focus on not only the projects, but the voting, because that certainly is a leverage point. And I guess just a little brag, in our little town of 12,000, we are using statistics in a nonpartisan way to encourage people to vote by going for 100%, which is very aspirational. But at the same time, it lets people know how are we doing. And frankly, there's times when we do really well, and there's times when we don't. So it's kind of I look forward to hearing more about your program and seeing how you're getting your peers involved, the youth involved, because that's so important.
And Ingrid, you bring up something that's really great. And I know that was something that folks really wanted to learn about on this call. So I just want to highlight that and ask maybe Emily or Chloe to speak to it. How can organizations or folks like us really, engage youth? How can we engage you? Whether, it's to vote, it's to be civically engaged, what are you looking for from us?
So if I could start off really quickly, I just wanted to say that I feel like sometimes young people tend to stray away from a lot of things that revolve around politics, government, because of the stigmas. So we're oftentimes in school, we are taught, for example, last year I took AP government and we were taught, we are not talking politics in this class. It's important to not talk about the elections. It's important to not talk about previous leaders. But the issue is that those things are directly correlating to our government and how our country works. So I think the destigmatization of things like politics doesn't have to be a dirty word. It doesn't have to be something that you don't bring up at the dinner table, because now it's important to come at things with putting your biases aside, putting away things like your pride when you're going to talk about things like politics, because sometimes there is no right or wrong when you're dealing with things like opinions. But I think that a lot of organizations, if they want to reach out to the youth, they need to tell them that this is you can make the change. A lot of the time, like Emily and I were saying, a lot of the times teenagers will think, I don't really care because it doesn't affect me. It's the apathy there, but it does affect us. And I think that's one thing that not only youth in government, but also the Civic Fellows program taught me so much. I'm less than 2 years away from being an adult. Like I am less than 2 years away from being an active voter in our government. That's a big deal. I affect who is going to lead our country. I am going to affect what our world is like. And that's really important. So I really think that we should focus on telling kids your opinion, your voice, your actions, they matter, because life doesn't exist in high school forever. We have to come out of that stage eventually. Yes, debate ideas, not people. That's our biggest thing. Is when we talk about things like politics, when we have I do legislative for youth and government, when we present bills that are about controversial controversial ideas, ones that are seen often in politics, we don't mention people at all. We don't. We like to talk about the ideas, the theories, the facts, and that helps us maintain a very peaceful, instead of arguing, we're debating. And I think that's an incredible institution that we have.
That was very beautifully said, Chloe. No, if no one was gonna say it, I'm gonna say it. That was very beautifully said. I think there's not really much to add on to that, except for I know that there is a need and a want for civic education within teens. They just don't know it yet. And by that I mean, like, at my own school, our principal will sometimes allow us to have protests, because sometimes there are pressing issues that are coming up in government and the students want to take action, and then we have a protest in the courtyard from a certain time to a certain time. It's very like the school organizes it very like strictly, but the students have freedom of speech, because we all do, but the students can utilize their freedom of speech. And I think like a lot of the times the students will do this, and like they're just not like they're protesting to use their voice, but sometimes I don't understand what they're actually doing. Like they'll be like, oh well, I just don't want this, but like, did you read the legislation that you're protesting? Because a lot of the people are learning their information from like various sources like TikTok or like YouTube or like from their parents, and a lot of those biased perspectives like modify what's really written in that legislation. So I guess this civic education is just like, it's very important, honestly, because like reading that legislation can really just change your mindset completely about what you're saying. But yeah, so back to you, Chelsea.
Sounds like you have to do you have to keep doing your homework, right?
Yeah. I've got a question for Judith and Chelsea. You have been running this program for now 6 years, 5 or 6 years. And do you have an alumni association? And are you planning to track the evolution of their careers and lives going forward? And I understood.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're so funny. I just sent out an alumni form for feedback. So this will be going on to my 3rd year here at the Florida State Alliance. So I came in a little bit like right the very first year after COVID. And yeah, to your point, it's a great tool to have. Our alumni are a great tool, not only just to see kind of where their journey and trajectory has taken them, but also to come back as graduate advisors and to be leaders, in our programming. So that is something I literally sent that out today. So many of our alumni received emails from me just to kind of see, where they're at, what university, because a lot of them will be in university now if they chose to go that route, just where that journey has taken them and what they've learned from this program and process as well.
Judith Ann, do you want to add to that in terms of from a research perspective? Is this a viable? I mean, I think I asked Chelsea what the cohort size was, and 15 to 25 in that range. And as you go forward in your next 5 years, then you'll have 10 years of alumnus or alumni. And I think that could be a very interesting study longitudinal to look at the impact of this fellows program on the civic careers that graduates have.
Yes, I saw that longitudinal study question on your first slide, and I was like, no, we haven't yet, but now that we've got 5 years of institutes under our belt, I think that we should, and I'll work with Chelsea with the alumni network and see if we can do a study so we can track the development over time. One of the beauties of the youth and government model itself is the mentorship that is brought in, as Chelsea was talking about with the grad advisors. So they have a culture of, having students, alumni come back and older students mentoring younger students, which is really an encouraging thing to see. We have had to, we've kind of changed our model a little bit. Our initial plan for this was students would do an institute, do the academic year program, and do a second institute, and that we were planning to build in a pre and post year, and planning to build in programming with the outgoing and the incoming students. And we haven't been able to actualize that. The first year we ran the program, we had a pre for the next year, but then COVID hit. And so then since then, we've only had the one institute at the end. So as we're building back the Y and working on a funding model, we could potentially go back to that initial idea of building in the pre and the post. Because we do every year have comments from the students who would love to come back and do it again. And I'm like, I'd love to have you back again. But so we'll have to go back and change, or see if we can identify the funding to go ahead and do the pre and the post institute at in the same week in June.
Right.
But that aside, we will work on a longitudinal study that we can share with the Alliance, maybe at a future webinar.
Yeah. Well, one point that in one of the slides was a legislative change to civic education to exclude direct. I didn't understand whether it was service learning or engagement, sort of community engagement. Is that a correct one reading, and how important this program is to fill that very large gap that has just been deleted from the curriculum?
It's very discouraging because all of the research shows how valuable experiential learning opportunities are for students. And particularly with what we're talking about here, which is developing good citizenship skills. You just aren't going to develop those skills from reading a textbook and bubbling in something on a Scantron exam. It just doesn't work that way. And we all know, anyone who's watching this call is going to understand that and know that research, I'm sure. So all of the experiential learning opportunities were removed. And I'm talking about things like a mock election, which was a nonpartisan, thing. Then there were other efforts to incorporate more service learning and community engagement in school. And that was vetoed. It was unanimously passed by both houses of the legislature, but was vetoed as action civics, and was, it was vetoed for that reason. So, but, so yes, I think programs like this, which again, it's nonpartisan program, it is not pushing any particular ideology, the legislation that the student, and I said it's a model government, not a mock government. So there's like political parties are not involved. It's really just but it's researching issues and trying to come up with solutions to those issues and address concerns of the students in the legislature, in their model legislature. So it's really an ability for students to learn about government, learn about issues, how to research issues, how to be involved and engaged in a nonpartisan kind of way.
Right.
So I think it's a wonderful complement now to this, what will soon be, if it's not corrected, our students.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let me take
Chelsea wants to add to that.
Let me take a moment to both kind of highlight the next webinar coming up, and then also, but to very much thank all of you, both Judith Ann and Chelsea and Emily and Chloe, for really making this a special, more flesh on the bones kind of presentation. And so I just wanted to make sure before we got done with this, that I expressed that large bit of gratitude. So thank you so much, and hopefully your lives going forward will be civically engaged, and we take inspiration from that. I just mentioned the next webinar is in September, and we're going to feature the Miami Underline, and it's a park, 10-mile park under what used to be just vacant lots in under the metro in Miami. And they've turned it into a civic asset, and they are engaging the whole community along that line. They're providing digital access, within like 3 or 4 miles of that. So anyway, it's a really great example of civic infrastructure, and in terms of especially in terms of parks and recreation, and how innovative this can be done. And it's this is modeled after a New York City similar version. So anyway, that's available, and hopefully you'd be interested. Also, we're going to have this summit in October 26th, 27th in St. Pete. And we're, among other things, we're going to provide student scholarships for that. So Chloe and Emily, just keep tuned into that, and if you have any interest, you and Chelsea can maybe provide and coordinate responses. But we'd really love to get youth in the room to talk and learn about this and engage with others of all generations. So
if I can, oh, sorry.
Yes.
So I actually have to get to my next class. I'm so sorry. So I have to go, but I want to say thank you so much for everything, and this was a pleasure for me. So thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you. She had to navigate talking in a library. So at any rate, the past programs are on our website. In fact, the original program back in February of 22 featured the free clinic in St. Pete, the YMCA, and the Habitat for Humanity. And it was sort of emerging from pandemic, and it was focused on volunteering and how that had changed in terms of virtual and real and et cetera. So I love the picture from the free clinic there that you had in your slides as well. So thank you so much. We are a membership organization, welcome members, and hopefully you have a better sense both of civic health and of youth, and how youth are engaging in civic health. We're going to have one program in I think in November, to look at the Stetson Law program on civic engagement with students in the area. So stay tuned for that. I'll keep Chelsea informed of that schedule and link, etc. Thanks again so much. Really, really appreciated your contributions. I think this is going to be really helpful. I'm going to be getting this out in the next day to all the people, both that registered, but also to many of our members, as well as others who are interested in this. And I think we'll find this really instructive program and a very positive, inspiring program. So thank you, everyone. With that, I think we're going to conclude the webinar, and I will stop sharing and close things down. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank
right.
you.
Okay.
Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you.